the latest battle in the food wars that rage down the aisles of your local supermarket. This time, it's about a new label you may have seen when you're pushing your cart down the cereal aisle or the cookie section. It's a little green check mark, and it's a seal that says Smart Food. It's meant to let you know nutritionists rate that food a healthy choice. But among the packages bearing the Smart Food seal are things like cookies, fudge, Pops, and even Fruit Loops. Fruit Loops, maybe, maybe not. John Donvan went shopping and has this report for our series, You Are What You Eat.
As a cook, of course, I think you should make your own tomato sauce, but okay. You know, and by the way, whole grain guaranteed. I mean, Quaker produces oats, right?
Mark Bittman likes food.
If an apple is just like something that fills you up and has a little fiber.
Just not the kind you find on most shelves of the supermarket. Like, get a box of Fruit Loops in his hands, and the sarcasm comes flowing.
First of all, who invented this spelling?
But his real issue with the loops, and let's zoom in on that green check mark there and those two words, smart choice, they drive him, well, in this context, can we say bananas?
Fruit Loops, of course, has no fruit in it, just to set the record straight. I mean, it has more sugar per serving than many cookies.
We went hunting the other day, food writer Mark Bittman and I, hunting for check marks.
I was confused by these check marks, because I'm seeing here this is smart choices. This is what we're talking.
Right.
And in fact, we found plenty, because for about a month now, this little logo has been showing up on hundreds of items. It signifies that the food in the package or the box or the jar, that it's met a certain standard. It's not a government program. It's a rating system jointly agreed to after 2 years of talks among food companies, a panel of leading nutritionists, and others. The question is, what's the standard? Those Fruit Loops again.
When sugar is 40% by weight of the product, what is the product? The product is dessert. It's not breakfast cereal, it's dessert.
But there's actually added vitamin A and vitamin C and fiber.
But you can put vitamins and minerals in garbage and it'll meet the nutritional requirements as long as the garbage is low in fat, basically.
And further on down the aisle, we went looking for who does not get a check mark.
Here's peanut butter,
well,
for example.
Peanut butter is a great example because we have here's a check mark on Skippy.
Right.
You know, America's favorite peanut butter, right? So it has peanuts, hydrogenated vegetable oils, which are, have trans fats, salt and sugar. So 4 ingredients, 2 of which are arguably not things you want to be eating too much of. And then you have this, store brand, no check mark, and it contains peanuts and salt. So, I mean, if you want peanut butter...
So your argument is this is actually better than that, but because Stop and Shop hasn't bought into the check mark, isn't paying to be part of the check mark program, they don't get the check mark.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an argument, this is a fact.
Well, actually, there is an argument, just not one that Mark Bittman is ever going to accept, ever.
No, I'm not going to cut them the benefit of the doubt.
Really?
But puzzled by Smart Choice Fruit Loops, we went with an open mind to talk with one of the nutritionists behind the Smart Choice check mark. And one of the first things he said is,
Fruit Loops has been, unfortunately, the poster child for the critics.
Because, says Richard Kahn, who for years was chief medical officer for the American Diabetes Association, this is a serious man, because the Smart Choice program is about so much more than Fruit Loops and is a good thing.
We believe the Smart Choices logo can move people, I'll call it up the ladder, away from high-fat foods, foods with high sugar content, foods with high cholesterol in them. I think we can move people by gradually saying, this is a smarter choice than you've been taking before.
Here's the point. Americans eat lots of processed foods, so give them a way to know that certain processed foods are, well, you can put it this way, less lacking in nutrition than others.
Actually, one of the goals of the program is to get companies to reformulate their foods.
Here's how it works. Companies that agree to the program, and most of the major food makers are in it now, they apply to be certified for the check mark on the basis of what's in their product, and they pay an application fee, up to $25,000 for product, and as low as $5,000. For example, this Tyson's chicken product gets the check mark because it only has 95 milligrams of sodium per serving, while Purdue's product here, and they're also in the program, it misses the cut because it has 350 sodium milligrams. The standard comes from federal guidelines that set 140 milligrams as the upper limit for the designation low sodium.
So what we did was to go to the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, food guidelines, government-sanctioned guidelines and say that's going to be the fundamental foundation and crux for what we did. And fundamentally, all the criteria are based on the food guidelines.
So, Fruit Loops. Well, we've got Mark Bittman telling us things like this.
If I take a pile of sawdust and I inject some nutrients into it and add some sugar and turn it into something that tastes good, is that okay?
Versus Richard Kahn, who says yes, actually, if you leave out the sawdust.
The Fruit Loops of yesteryear are not the Fruit Loops of today. They're actually better because the company reformulated the product so that it could get the smart choices, and that's what we want them to do.
Indeed, Fruit Loops, with its check mark, has an upgraded ingredient list. It's got less of the sodium and fat and trans fat and cholesterol zero, actually, than are established by federal guidelines as a maximum per serving. It has also added vitamin A, vitamin C, and fiber that exceeds what the guidelines say should be in a serving.
This is a product where sugar is the major ingredient.
It represents something like 5% of the total amount of sugar consumed by the average child in a course of a day. So it really isn't, I'm not here to advocate for Fruit Loops.
That's right, this cereal is 41% sugar, which is more than you'll find in a serving of Nutter Butters or Chips Ahoy or Famous Amos. But that 12 grams of sugar just meets the federal guideline. And besides, says Kahn, it's where the flavor is.
But you mean the cereal is the bait to get people to eat the breakfast?
Correct. The cereal, because Americans are not eating breakfast.
General Mills, Quaker.
Well, tell that to Mark Bittman, back with me still exploring that supermarket.
You would not be impressed if one of the results of this program and of a public beginning to embrace the green check mark would be that food manufacturers actually start to inject more identifiable nutrients, vitamin C, fiber, into their products. At a minimum, would that not make them nutrient delivery systems?
Well, you know, John, I don't know how long ago white bread was invented where all the nutrients were taken out and then the government mandated that it needed to be enriched. I mean, you're taking stuff out, you're putting it back in. There's profit at every step.
Their check mark is not going on all their products by a long shot. So it's not like, oh, we're just going to put this on everything. In fact, we are moving in the right direction, and I'm perfectly delighted for a company to benefit by having this check mark on it.
Well, we will have to see whether the green check mark does change habits and helps Americans get healthier. Kahn says that is a process that will take years. For now, we'll leave with Mark Bittman examining a can of Kool-Aid, and the question he asked as we stood there.
Kool-Aid has 35% less sugar than regular sodas, but what does that make it? I mean, does that make it good?
That is the question. I'm John Donvan for Nightline in New York.